This week saw the rand dropping to a fresh 4-year low against the US dollar. The currency later advanced against the dollar on news that America will be scaling back stimulus as soon as September. Well, that's the rand today, but the rand in 2001 was a very different story. And it's the subject of a new book by a former colleague of mine, good friend of mine, Barry Sargent, author of The Assault on the Rand. Let me just when you've had a look at Barry, you can have a look at this book. How does that look? Okay, you got it up a bit. It says Philip. There it is. Okay, Phil, happy. And also with us in studio is Kevin Wakeford, Chief Executive of Wakeford Investment Enterprises, who plays a very key part in this whole story. Barry, I'm glad to see you here. You've been during the writing of this book. You've had your own challenges.
Yeah, I was somewhat incapacitated. I had another attack, if I can put it that way, of cancer. Skin cancer on my face. So I've had surgery and all the other treatments, but I'm alive and I'm feeling good.
And I think there are many of us who are delighted that you are alive and feeling good and have managed to put yet another book. How many is this now that you've put together?
This is my third one.
Your third one?
Yeah.
Of course, the Cable book was the one that kind of got things going. But
yep.
Why now? Why 12 years later? Have you decided to grab the subject again?
Alec, the main reason for that is that Kevin Wakeford, who played a crucial role during the collapse of the rand, not being part of it as such, but in terms of blowing the whistle, he didn't want to talk about it for a long, long time. As it turned out, a decade, just over 10 years. And I didn't have enough information to write a book that I felt would be complete without input from Kevin. So I waited. And last year he said, okay, he's prepared to now talk about it. So that was the main reason for why the book has taken so long.
You took a lot of punishment at the time of the Rand Commission, and clearly we'll talk to Kevin in just a moment. Mm. Do you have any resentments about what happened back then to you?
No, not at all, no. I mean, the various people that were or turned out to be involved, it was confirmed that they were part of the Rand's collapse in 2001. At the time when, let's say in the early days, the early parts of 2002, they went on the attack and I was one of the casualties, and that's just part of the landscape. And apart from anything else, it's been so long that I certainly don't regret, or I don't have any kind of vengeance.
Resentment.
Resentment, no, certainly not.
Well, you're used to it though, aren't you? Brett Kebble certainly didn't hold back.
No, exactly, yeah. I mean, he even went so far as to sue me.
I was glad to see you weren't on his hit list though. There were 5 names there, yours wasn't on them.
He probably thought by that stage he's done enough to me, he'll leave me alone.
Kevin Wakeford, good to see you here, Kevin.
Thank you.
2001, you were a whistleblower. Just briefly tell us the story.
Alec, well, as you know, the rand went from around 8 rand to 13.84 to the dollar. That was a 45% devaluation. And if one inverses that, it's 45% off the disposable income of ordinary people. But more so for the bulk of, at that time, SACOB's members, South African Chamber of Business. We had 40,000 members. Most of them were small family businesses. And businesses like that usually operate on credit. There's quite a bit of loan capital sitting in the companies. They have to service that debt, and whenever you have a collapse in the currency, you have inflation spiking and you have interest rates running mad. So people were insecure. They wanted answers. I didn't have the answers at the time. It was my job to find out. And I then called for a commission of inquiry. I met with a number of people from the presidency, including the economic advisor to the president, Prof. Wiseman and Kuchlu. I gave him whatever detail I had from a source, and I don't know why my source was ever the subject of news at the time, because if you look at the transcripts of the commission of inquiry, I think James Cross's, the former Deputy Reserve Bank Governor, and the whole transcript is in the book. He said they knew everything already in any event.
Any regrets that you did what you did?
No, I have no regrets.
You took a caning. You had this great career,
Yeah.
Young chief executive of SACOB, and all of a sudden ostracized.
Yes, and after a year or two, I started clawing my way back into into the mainstream again. I had a lot of good friends who came to the party, who opened up opportunities for me. The first business venture we had kind of collapsed. It was called Growth Africa. It was an investment facilitation company.
But Kevin, why now? Why have you now only now said to Barry, great, I'll give you the story of what happened?
After that process, I'd lost my stamina to fight, and I just needed to regroup, to find myself again, to gain perspective. And if you read the book, a lot has been revealed subsequent to the commission. So different players who closed down the commission, who were part of the commission, who were part of the attack on me, have been revealed as beneficiaries of the process itself. So I think it's going to be very interesting for the readers to see who in fact gained and who lost. I gained in a sense that I found myself. I'm far more deliberate about where I want to be in life, where I'm going. I was young, I was hungry at the time, and I was certainly full of fight, and I enjoyed the fight. But yeah, I really had to settle down, and that's why I didn't go straight into a book.
We could carry on here for hours, and unfortunately time has caught us up. But Barry, what's your next trick?
In terms of books?
In terms of this, Kevin was saying we had the Rand Commission, there was a lot of perhaps propaganda, miscommunication at the time. Certainly the bits of the book that I've read point that out. Is there any retribution? Is there any anything that's going to happen as a consequence of the reveal, of what's been revealed here?
Alec, I think there are 2 points. The collapse of the Rand in 2001 was the biggest financial crisis in local history, South African history. A lot of people, it just passed them by. It was reversed when Kevin Wakeford blew the whistle. That's point number 1. Point number 2, it was a huge cover-up, huge. There were a lot of people involved, and I've gone through, I think, the whole list in the book. I think it's time, given especially what's happened globally after 2008 in the global financial banking crisis, for the local banks to be taken to task. And I would include the Reserve Bank in that, so that we can actually look at that experience many years later and say simply, what can we learn from it? Isn't that fair enough?
Barry Sargent, lovely to see you. And Kevin, also nice to see you back in, certainly in our CNBC Africa studios and back in the business mainstream, if you like. We look forward to a lot more from the two of you in the years ahead. That was Barry Sargent, the author of The Assault on the Rand, and Kevin Wakeford, Chief Executive of Wakeford Investment Enterprise.